Before we get into this video, do you have a favorite team? Do you consider yourself a die-hard fan? Or as I like to call it, more than a fan? Check out the link below to get you a more than a fan t-shirt, hoodie, or hat as we get ready for the NFL season. But let's get into the video. And this is not to discredit Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase whatsoever. Both those guys are really good and are top 5 wide receivers in the game. I'm just not understanding why Lamb isn't mentioned with those guys. And let's take it a step further and compare Lamb's and Justin Jefferson sophomore season.
Whose world is this?
The world is yours. The world is yours.
It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Whose world?
CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. So let's talk about who CeeDee Lamb is, because clearly you all forgot. So the Cowboys drafted CeeDee Lamb with the 17th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. He wasn't even supposed to be there with the 17th pick. We literally got lucky. In multiple top wide receiver prospect lists prior to the actual NFL Draft, CeeDee Lamb was looked upon as the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver prospect in the whole draft. I mean, PFF had Lamb number 2 behind Jared Judy. NBC Sports had him number 1. And Sports Illustrated had him either number 1 or number 2, depending on the week. But despite those rankings, the first wide receiver taken off the board was Henry Ruggs at pick number 12. And that was only due to the fact that he ran a 4.2 40. The Broncos then took Jared Judy with the 15th pick, which I thought was a good pick because I had Judy and Lamb as the best wideout prospects, and you couldn't go wrong with either. Now, if you look at the Dallas Cowboys roster that year, we didn't really need a wide receiver that early on in the draft. Like, it wasn't a main priority whatsoever, and that's because Amari Cooper was still cooking. But CeeDee Lamb literally fell in our lap, and he was too good of a prospect to pass up on. So what made CeeDee Lamb a good NFL prospect? That we had to draft him instead of taking care of major concerns. Well, in college, Lamb was a starter since day one. As a true freshman at Oklahoma in 2017, he caught passes from quarterback Baker Mayfield, who would go on to win the Heisman Trophy. He played in all 14 games, having 46 catches, which was tied for second for all freshmen. He had 807 yards, which was a school freshman record. And he had 7 touchdowns, which was tied for the school freshman record. Now, at the end of the season, he received Freshman All-American honors by ESPN. And as a sophomore in 2018, his starting quarterback was Kyler Murray, who will also go on to win the Heisman Trophy. Now, I'm not saying that Lamb is the reason that 2 different Oklahoma quarterbacks won back-to-back Heisman trophies, but anyway, Lamb played in all 14 games and had 13 starts. He caught 65 passes for 1,158 yards to go along with 11 touchdowns. He also was the team's punt returner, having 17 returns for 218 yards on a 12.8 yard average. Lamb actually paired up with Marquise Brown that year, and they became the first wide receiver tandem in school history to record 1,000 receiving seasons in the same year. Now, as a junior in 2019, he caught passes from Jalen Hurts, and Hurts finished second in the Heisman Trophy voting. Lamb was named a first-team All-American after catching 62 passes for 1,327 yards and 14 touchdowns. Now that is 3 different quarterbacks he played with in 3 years, and it didn't matter. He still produced big time. So now let's fast forward to CeeDee Lamb's rookie year with the Cowboys and explain why CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 wide receiver. So as a rookie, CeeDee finished with just under 1,000 yards. He had 935 yards with 5 touchdowns. Fairly decent, but he only played with his starting quarterback for the first 5 games of the season. In those 5 games, CeeDee Lamb had 433 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's nearly half his total stats in only 5 games in which he played with his actual QB1, Dak Prescott. Not to mention, he was literally only a rookie, just getting his feet wet in the league, and he came out the gate cooking. For the rest of the season, he had to play with quarterbacks such as Andy Dalton for 9 games, Garrett Gilbert for 1 game, and Ben DiNucci for a game. So you have this rookie who hit the ground running with his true starting quarterback and then lose him for the season. Then he has to play with 3 other below average quarterbacks and still almost hits that 1,000 yard rookie season mark. Now let's compare CeeDee Lamb's first 5 games as a rookie, the games where he got to play with his actual starting quarterback, alongside two of the top young wide receivers in the game, the wide receivers that everyone has in their top 5 in the league. That is Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Now, Jefferson was drafted the same year as Lamb, and as we all know, Jamar Chase was a rookie this past season. So in these three guys' first 5 games as rookies, CeeDee Lamb had 433 yards and 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson had 371 yards and 1 touchdown. And Jamar Chase had 456 yards and 5 touchdowns. So as you can see, when playing with a starting quarterback, CeeDee Lamb had better stats than Justin Jefferson. And he probably would have had just as good as a rookie season if Dak never got hurt. And he's right there with Jamar Chase. Not to mention that 2 of Chase's first 5 games went into overtime. So he got a little extra game time to get them stats up. And this is not to discredit Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase whatsoever. Both those guys are really good and are top 5 wide receivers in the game. I'm just not understanding why Lamb isn't mentioned with those guys. And let's take it a step further and compare Lamb's and Justin Jefferson sophomore season. In 2021, Lamb had 79 catches for 1,102 yards to go along with 6 touchdowns. Now, Justin Jefferson had 108 catches for 1,616 yards to go along with 10 touchdowns. But Lamb only had 120 targets. Justin Jefferson had 167 targets. That was because Lamb had another wide receiver on his roster in Amari Cooper, where Justin Jefferson was the main guy. He is the number 1 guy in Minnesota. Now, is 50 more targets equal to 500 more yards and 4 more touchdowns? I'm not saying that, but it could be. So in closing, I do think that CeeDee Lamb is and will prove to be a top 5 wide receiver in the league this year, especially since his targets will go up and he's finally considered the number 1 wide receiver on the roster because we lost Amari Cooper to the Cleveland Browns. But those are just my thoughts. Comment below your thoughts. Do you think that CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 wide receiver? I get it. He's definitely a top 10 wide receiver. If you're saying he's not a top 10 wide receiver, I don't know what to tell you. I truly think he's a top 5 wide receiver. I mean, his rookie season, he lost his starting quarterback, and he was cooking. He would have had at least 1,300 yards his rookie year if Dak never got hurt. Because he was playing in the slot, and he was cooking in that slot. He was matched up against linebackers and safeties. And then last year, he did get that 1,000-yard season. But like I said, his targets weren't up there with the likes of Jamar Chase targets, Justin Jefferson targets, Cooper Kupp targets. You know, so the fact that he'll get them targets this year, watch out. I'm telling you, he's going to prove to the world that he's a top 5 wide receiver. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, but hey, it's the truth. But comment below your thoughts. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a like on this video. And like I always say, if you love the Dallas Cowboys or just an NFL team, go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now because it's free. But until next time,